Let's get this sports podcast party started, all right?
The JAYREELZ podcast.
What is happening, my good people? Greetings. How are you? How's it going? How's everybody doing out there? What is the latest and greatest? Hope everybody's doing well, feeling fantastic, in excellent spirits. It's a great day to celebrate as I get to uncover all that's going on in the world of sports, as this is the JAYREELZ podcast with JAYREELZ. For my first timers, welcome aboard. And for those who've been banging with me going back to the very beginning, somewhere in the middle, or even as early as this past Monday, I welcome you guys and gals back. And here in the Northeast, there's a bit of a chill in the air. 2 days ago, it was just about, I believe, right at 80 degrees Fahrenheit. And it felt like it was summer. Actually, it felt like summer over the last few days. Heading into yesterday, it was cooled off a little bit. It was in the upper 60s. I believe it just touched 70. And when you wake up this morning, here in the New York tri-state area, it's sunny, it's bright, but oh yeah, there is that chill in the air. Oh yeah, you do have to put on a hoodie. Oh yeah, maybe some sweats. Yes, fall seems to be here as it arrives and comes in like a lion. But unfortunately, for the baseball team that plays its games in the new Snake Pit on 161st and River Avenue, a team that went to a World Series last year, and after a Game 3 come-from-behind win, everything that was going into last night with the momentum and the postseason that the probably future MVP and the current reigning MVP of the American League looked like he was going to build on. And all you can do is when you wake up this morning and you feel that chill in the air, and yes, it is October, but that same chill could be felt there at Yankee Stadium because the season for 2025, may it rest in peace, and the Yankee fan have their flags at half-mast, because I am proud to say that not only is the season over, not only is the celebratory mood after beating the Red Sox where they acted like fools, and I get it to the 20-year-old fans that are tanked up and thinking, F Boston, and we're going back to World Series, and this, that, which were probably the same fans that were at Madison Square Garden on May 16th, where the Knicks beat the Celtics in the second round, thinking that they won a championship, which happened to be the same night that Juan Soto made his return to Yankee Stadium in the Bronx, where the bleacher creatures turned their back on him. Petty and very childish, I might add. And I get it, that was their statement to show Soto that we don't care, blah, blah, blah. But we know that they had Juan Soto living rent-free in their heads, which I talked about. But with all that being said, as I puffed up the pillow last night at around 11:45, as I pulled the blanket over my nice, cool body, and let out a big exhale to say, for the 16th straight year, another winter, I can sleep in peace. And let me detail and chronicle what has happened over the last 2 days, because mind you, we are in the middle of a division series where the Phillies survived in LA, winning a Game 3 last night, as well as the Cubs winning at home against the Brewers, and the Tigers, who were down 3-0 in the fifth inning, and then they scored 9 unanswered runs, thanks to Javi Baez with the punctuating home run there. And the Tigers will go to Seattle for a Game 5 tomorrow. But there are a team or a series that is missing. And the Yankees decided to say, you know what? We'll join Juan Soto in Cancun, as he put that picture on his Instagram, which was a little foolish because the Yankee fans were saying, Met fans, look at this. All right, but that's fine. It's all good. But as far as the Yankees now punching their ticket to Cancun or to the Caribbean or somewhere overseas in Europe or maybe even Bora Bora or Bali, a destination that you want to pencil in wherever it may be. But they will not be going back to Toronto for a Game 5, which would have been tomorrow night at 8 p.m. How did we get here? Let me detail and count the ways. So, as I mentioned on Tuesday night, where the Yankees were down 0-2, and that was a game that obviously they had to have in order to save their season, and it certainly didn't look good. Vladimir Guerrero hit a 2-run homer at the top of the first. Yankees answered back thanks to former Yankee Isaiah Kiner-Falefa butchering a ball at second base, which led to a Yankee run by a Giancarlo Stanton single. And then as they continued to pile on the Toronto offense, and it was 6-1, and Yankee fans had visions of what happened in Toronto dancing in their head, considering that they had given up 23 runs, the Yankee pitching staff that is, in the 2 games north of the border, and now it's 6-1 going into the bottom of the third, where the Yankees were able to cut into that lead, and which was enormous, because Carlos Rodon, who I've said a zillion times here on this podcast, that is a guy I would never trust in a big spot as far as I could throw him. Even in the Red Sox game last week, where they absolutely had to have, where they lost the first game, as you know, and he was fighting through just to get through 6 innings, and even though he battled and left the game tied at that point, but it was a situation where the Yankees had a 3-2 lead and he gave it up, so therefore he did not pitch well. And then what you saw there Tuesday night was an abomination. 2 1/3 or 2 2/3, he was out. So then you had the Yankee bullpen come in with Fernando Cruz leading the brigade, and what they did was masterful. They shut down the Blue Jay offense. They didn't score another run after Rodon left, and give it up. A Yankee bullpen which has been much maligned, but they actually stood and delivered to the point where they kept the Blue Jays at bay for the Yankees to come back. And they did do so in the bottom of the third, where they scored the 2 runs. And those are huge, because anytime you want to chip away, granted it was early in the game, but with the first inning after the home run by Guerrero, they got 1 run back. And with the 4 spot that the Yankees gave up, they got half of those back. So now you're looking at a 6-3 game when you get to the bottom of the 4th. And then you had it all unfold to where Addison Barger missed that pop-up where the left fielder David Schneider should have called him off. And I understand the wind took that ball there at the very end, but still. But then you had a scenario where Trent Grisham walked, who had an abominable series. And if you're a Yankee fan, I don't know if you want to send him packing, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But Grisham walks, and then Judge on an 0-2 fastball in on his hands, which I didn't understand why the manager John Schneider brought in Louis Varland, because this is a guy that Judge owned. 2 for 5, both of those hits a home run. And listen, tip your hat to Varland. He threw a fastball in his pots and pans, to use some baseball parlance, in his kitchen. And Judge turned on that to where it hit 2/3 on the way up off the foul pole. 6-3 became 6-6. And Judge, for all the Yankee fans, want to say, oh, he has his moment now. This is his coming out party, yada, yada, yada. So I retort by saying, what happened in Game 4 against Emmanuel Clase when the Yankees were down? I believe it was 4-2, and he had a 2-run home in the 9th inning. And maybe I should pull that up, and I should have probably done that beforehand. But still, Judge hit that home run opposite field, a line shot off of Clase, and didn't Giancarlo Stanton follow suit with a home run in his own right after that, which pretty much sealed the deal, not only on Game 4, but pretty much for the Guardians' chances of any hope of them coming back to win the series. And we know Soto in the next round, or the next game, I should say. So, right, with all that being said, didn't Judge have that moment last year? Or even if you want to say Game 5 of the World Series in the first inning, when he hit the 2-run homer of Jack Flaherty. Now, of course, it gets swallowed up by his dropped ball in center field, which opened up the floodgates for the Dodgers in that game, and we know how that unfolded. And not to bring up those bad memories, because I want to bring up last night's memories, and I'll get to that in a second. But for what it's worth, yes, we could talk about how the Yankees were able to come back, Jazz Chisholm with the home run and the bat flip to make it 7-6, and Yankee fans are riding high. They get 2 more runs. As I mentioned, the bullpen was lights out, and the Yankees live to see another day. They win 9-6, and now everybody's thinking, oh, this series is going to go back to Toronto. Yankees with all the momentum. Cam Schlittler, the performance that he had there against the Red Sox last week in the deciding wild card game, Game 3, and all that. And if you watch my live stream yesterday, I put out a declaration, and a big one at that. The reason why I say that is because for those who thought that Cam Schlittler was going to have a repeat performance of that 8-inning, 5-hit, 12 strikeout, no walk performance, I would have said to you that you're off your rocker. To the tune that on my Wednesday live stream, I came out and said that if Cam Schlittler has anything close to what he had in Game 3 against the Red Sox last week, that every time I raise my glass, which right now, if you're watching on Spotify or on YouTube, I'm drinking H2O, people, not vodka. And I usually tease by saying, oh, guys, this is water. It's not vodka or rum, anything clear that I'm over here drinking, getting myself sauced up. But I did say that if Cam Schlittler was going to come close to having a performance similar to what he had last week, that I would drink vodka on my next live stream. Well, thankfully, I don't have to worry about that. But now, before I even get to that, I want to bring up last year real quick, because in that game 4, in the 9th inning, and I have to bring up the play-by-play, maybe I don't even need to do that. Giancarlo, 4th inning. Oh, that was early on. Oh, what was that? Was that game 5? Maybe it was game 5. One of those games, I know that they hit the home run, or maybe it was in game 3 when they lost the game. Here I am. I'm doing this as I'm live. No, it was it was Clase in the 8th inning. Yeah, the 2 home runs. So, right, it didn't have the same dramatic effect. Now, we all know what happened there. It actually put themselves in a position in a game 3 where they lost. If you recall, the home runs in the 9th by the Guardians, but that was game 3. So I guess maybe Aaron Judge, that wasn't his moment, but I thought that was a big moment for him against a big-time closer where we haven't seen him deliver in big-time moments in the postseason. So to go back to that real quick, I thought he already had his moment, or moments, and even the game 5 of the World Series when he hit the home run finally to get off the schneid. So now he had this Yankee Stadium moment in game number 3 2 nights ago. All right, 6-3 to make it 6-6. He batted .500 for the series. A ton of singles, a couple of doubles, and yes, a dramatic home run, albeit in the bottom of the 4th inning. It wasn't as if it was in the bottom of the 8th or in the 9th inning to tie the game. So now we get to last night. And what happens? Vladimir Guerrero right off the bat, 1-0 to kind of silence the crowd. Okay, fine. But then Ryan McMahon, the 9-hitter, hits a home run in that joke of a short porch. Yeah, right field, Yankee Stadium, as I've said a million times. But then Toronto gets another run, and now here's where it gets dicey. So Schlittler, who did pitch well. Now he scattered 8 hits, pitched 6 1/3, whatever it was. But now you have a scenario where the Yankee bullpen and Aaron Boone went to, instead of Fernando Cruz, and I get it how many pitches he had the day before, and you're not going to go to Tim Hill there. All right, fine, no problem. But he goes to Devin Williams. So what happens? Devin Williams, although he strikes out George Springer, but you had a scenario where Andres Jimenez had the ground ball that looked like it was going to be a routine double play. He would have got out of it. It would have been 2-1 game. But Jazz Chisholm, who the night before, although he hit the home run, was snoring at second base and with a big giant yawn as if he didn't even want to be there. So, and I get it that the umpire was in his direct line when the ball was coming up on him, but that was a ball that he absolutely had to have. So what happens? Hits his glove, goes into center field. Great base running as the runner from second goes to third. You had first and third with Jimenez up. And then that's when you had a scenario where Williams comes in, he strikes out Springer. But then the second place hitter, Nathan Lucas, what does he do? Now, mind you, when Springer struck out, which kind of goes under the radar, you had the situation where Jimenez stole second. So now you have second and third, 2 outs. And as we all know, when it comes to October baseball, it's all about pitching and timely hitting. And Nathan Lucas, who you wouldn't know if he fell on you or if he sat next to you at dinner wearing a Blue Jay jersey with his name on the back, he takes a high fastball into the opposite field, base hit, 2-run single, and that pretty much did it. And Devin Williams, I'm sure the Yankee fan does not want to see him ever again, or especially in the Yankee uniform. If he comes to the stadium wearing another uniform, that's fine. But Devin Williams, and I understand it's not all on him, but because he gave up that single, that pretty much put the final coffin in the Yankee 2025 season. And then you tack on a run later, Miles Straw with the inside-out swing, and Ernie Clement, who the guy got hit in the back, and I understand, but the guy was just all over the place throughout the course. I mean, he had just a killer series. And even though Judge got the RBI double in the 9th, but they go meekly into the night, 5-2. That is your series. That is your season. Game, set, match. And if I didn't remind you earlier, another win so I can sleep in peace. But now what happens with this Yankee team moving forward? Before I get on to the rest of the other series, as well as the NFL, college football, basketball, etc. Now, for starters, you got to get off Aaron Judge's back. He batted .500. He gave you the moment, which nobody's going to remember. Let's face it. I understand the diehard Yankee fan 20 years from now. Oh, remember Aaron Judge's homer game 3 of the division series? I mean, seriously? Seriously. I brought up the home run in game 3 in a loss. And I understand that was in a win. But that was more dramatic. Judge hitting that home run over a guy who was unhittable in Emmanuel Clase than it was for what happened there. And a great swing and a pitch that no one else on this planet could probably hit. All the kudos to you, Aaron Judge. But still, nobody's going to remember that. I'm sorry. Case closed. But you got to get Judge's back. He finally had a postseason that at least he can hang his hat on moving forward for future postseasons. But he's not getting any younger. He'll be 34 come April 26th next year. But you got to start off with the GM and manager. They're not going anywhere. Hal Steinbrenner's going to keep them. That would actually be the upset of all time. That would be a Cleveland Cavalier 3-1 comeback over the Golden State Warriors in 2016 if Brian Cashman and or Aaron Boone get shown the door. Cashman signed an extension 2 years ago, and Boone signed an extension last year. So I don't think he's going to want to have to pay off those guys for the next few years in order to bring in another GM or manager. So that's for starters, people. Now, as far as the team itself, I understand that the wound is still fresh, that you still haven't been able to dust off this loss, Yankee fans, and I feel you. Totally, and I mean that 100%. Because remember, all of this clapping back at the Yankees and the Yankee fan, this is strictly business, never personal. But I'm sure if you're a Yankee fan, and yes, I would think you'd want to have Cody Bellinger back. I would think you want to have some guys come back, whomever are going to be free agents, etc., and I get that. But you got to construct this team to where you don't have 100 first basemen. You got to construct this team where you don't have 100 DHs or 4 left fielders or 3 center fielders. You got to go in next year with a plan here. So if that means that you're going to keep Cody Bellinger and not give the full-time position to a one Jason Dominguez, or if Jason Dominguez is going to play center and that's going to be his position, then fine. Or Spencer Jones, that is your future. We need to have him play left field, then fine. And if Ben Rice is going to be your first baseman, all right, you want to bring back Paul Goldschmidt on a whatever, $8 million deal just for a bat off the bench and to spell Rice from time to time. But if you're the Yankee front office, he's taking ground balls from now until spring training, day 1 next February. Because Rice is not a good first baseman. But you want Rice to be that guy? Fine. You got to construct this team, and maybe they shouldn't be hearing this because I'm actually not telling them what to do, but you understand where I'm coming from. This team has to get younger. They can't get older. Bellinger, I believe, is pushing 30. Giancarlo is going to be 36. I already mentioned Judge is going to be 34. Garrett Cole coming back from Tommy John. Oh, his arm's going to be bionic. He's probably not going to miss a beat. He, I believe, is going to be 35. The team is not getting any younger. You need to get younger. You need to be more athletic. You need to have guys that, yes, are going to be dogs, but guys that are going to be able to play full seasons. You can't have guys get on the IL for various amounts of periods of time. And I get it, that can happen to even a 24-year-old, a 25. Understood. And as it is, your shortstop right now is a disaster. 1 for 15 with 10 strikeouts? But mind you, in his last 12 at-bats in the ALDS, 10 of those were strikeouts. And he's going to have a guy looking over his shoulder in George Lombard, who they drafted number 1 a few years ago, where I understand he's 20, maybe 21 next year, maybe even before spring training. I don't know when his birthday is. But that guy could be the shortstop of the future, where Volpe's going to be gone. And the Yankee fan, not that the ire should be directly at him, at Volpe, but yeah, they've had enough. That honeymoon is over. So Volpening Day 2 years ago and having the good rookie year, winning a gold glove and all that, that is gone. He batted 210 this year? And yes, he had his moment in October hitting a home run off of Garrett Crochet last week. That might as well have been last month. But technically it was because that game was on September 30th. So the Yankee fans had enough with Volpe. But I would think this. You can't see Devin Williams come back to this team. Cody Bellinger, I get it. They want to bring him back. And I understand he's a guy that you may want to have in your lineup. Left-handed bat, short porch, etc. Athletic, can play left field, can play center, can play first. But what does that mean for Spencer Jones? What does that mean for Jason Dominguez, who finally, they dusted him off of mothballs. And what did he do? He pitched in the 9th inning, he hit a double. Now, I'm not trying to make Jason Dominguez out to be McMahon, but there you go. And I'm sure maybe there were Yankee fans cursing out Aaron Boone. Why didn't we see Jason Dominguez early on in the series? Which you can't second guess him at that time, because if he would have struck out, it would have been like, all right, big whoop. So you can't do that. But I will say this. The Yankees need to have a plan here. They just can't all of a sudden, because of what happened last year with Juan Soto, to piecemeal this together to bring in Cody Bellinger and Paul Goldschmidt and Devin Williams and this guy and that guy. we saw how the season went. And yes, they did win 94 games. And yes, they beat the Red Sox finally in the postseason. And the Blue Jays, let's face it, they took it to the back of the woodshed. And it should have been a sweep if it wasn't because of their bullpen. But you got to give it up. The Jays bullpen did a reversal of what you saw there the night before. As they pitched 8 pitchers in a bullpen game, they didn't have to go to Kevin Gausman or Trey E. Savage or anybody. But if you're a Yankee fan, and I'll conclude this here. If you're a Yankee fan, I understand you don't like the vitriol directed toward you. I understand it's only for one day, at least for me, because I'm not going to continue to hammer this home into November, December, etc. This is my day to get the pound of flesh. But you got to look at this team as trying to get a little bit younger. You got to look at this team knowing that the pieces that you have in place, guys that could be fixtures for many years to come, whether that means Volpe gets his act together, whether that means Jason Dominguez, Spencer Jones, Ben Rice, those are guys you want to have on your team. Those are guys that, unless you're going to package them for somebody else, but somebody that's going to be of even better quality. A guy that you could bring in, and no, not to trade for, let's say, Mike Trout. Not to say that that's on anybody's radar, not to say it's going to happen, but you get what I mean. You got to get younger. You got to be more athletic. You got to be more wise, because this team right now, as constructed, do they have the talent? Absolutely. Do they have World Series ability? Absolutely. They just won the World Series last year. But the make of this team is made out of Scotch tape, bubble gum, old mashed potatoes, you name it. So all I can say is this. Yes, I understand no championships since 2009, and it's a scenario where you're frustrated and aggravated, and you could direct it to Brian Cashman, Aaron Boone, etc. But I believe they're not going anywhere. But you would only hope that the masterminds and the powers that be, when they get together in Tampa at some point here over the next few weeks, that they figure this out the right way. Because if they're just going to continue to bring back guys and retreads and has-beens and former MVPs and things of that nature, as they did this year, they brought in 2 former MVPs to this team. And what did they get them? Game 4 of the division series. You got to be better than that. But you know what? I hope that's not the case, because I do not want your team to win a World Series as long as I'm alive, because I've seen plenty of them in my lifetime. That is it. Let us move on. The other American League Series, I am fascinated by that game tomorrow night on so many levels. Seattle's mettle and toughness, everything that they had to do to get here. And I kind of need to put this on one guy and one guy only, but Tarik Skubal. He's probably going to win the AL Cy Young Award again, back-to-back years. He's going to be a free agent after next year, and he's going to be remembered when it's time for him to get the big payday for games like tomorrow night. And if he throws another gem, and he pitched well in game 1, although he didn't get the decision, but they won the game. And those are the games that the Tigers absolutely have to win if they plan on going to Toronto and beyond. And they won game 1 in Cleveland when he threw 7 2/3, 14 strikeouts. So that's why tomorrow, that game may not be sexy. Detroit, Seattle, nobody cares. If you're a sports fan and you look at Skubal going up against Seattle, in that atmosphere, in that setting, for a chance to go to a championship series, you're not a sports fan if you're not interested in that game. Straight up. So let's see how that goes. And how we got here. Now, I didn't watch the Mariner Tiger game 3, because it was coinciding with the game 3 of the Yankees. And I did watch the first couple of innings leading up until the Yankee broadcast. But obviously they pounded a lot of home runs. Jorge Polanco, I believe Cal Raleigh hit a home run in that game. And it went going away 8-4. And they had to delay the game 3 hours because of rain, so that was a mess. And then you had yesterday where they were down 3-0, and you thought to yourself, geez, they're going to go out like that? But they came back, tied the game, and then Javi Baez was at a very good postseason, and good for him. He's a guy that, as we all know, great glove, free swinger, but he hit a big home run, propelled them to a 9 unanswered run from the 3-0 point on to where they live to see another day, and I'll have a game 5 there tomorrow night in Seattle. I have to think that the Tigers are going to be a slight favorite only because of the pitching matchup. And that's not a knock on George Kirby, the starter for the Mariners. But for Skubal, this is it. He got to bring his team to the next round. And that's why I think he'll be able to do so. And mind you, he's going to be on an extra day's rest because they started that series Saturday. And having that extra day, I'm sure, is going to help. So for Skubal, I take that back. He pitched Sunday. He pitched game 2. So I take that back. So he's going to be on regular rest, which is good for him. So now, I think the Tigers, now in my gut of guts, I thought that the Mariners are going to win the series in 5, even with Skubal on the mound, but I don't know. It's tough. Because you know they're going to pitch Skubal until his arm falls off. There's no way that A.J. Hinch is taking him out 5th inning like he did last year. Well, no, he pitched through the 5th inning, gave it the grand slam to Lane Thomas against the Guardians. And if it all implodes, that's a different story. But I like Detroit in the game only because I like Skubal. So I can see them move on. I can see Seattle winning. I mean, I'm not going to be shocked if the Mariners win. Because as great as Skubal is, he's not unhittable. But he can be. And that's why I'm picking them tomorrow. Then you have in the National League, Cubs. Now, the Cubs had a 3-0 lead there in game 2, only for them to answer back with a 3-run homer. Willie Contreras and Jackson Chourio. And next thing you know, 7-3 as the Brewers are looking to sweep the Cubs. But the Cubs were able to hang on there last night. They now extend the series to a game which will be played at night because you're going to have Phillies-Dodgers the first game. Of course, I'll get to them in a moment. But with the Cubs, that was a game for their fans and even for their season they needed to have, as you know. So when the Brewers got off to a 1-0 lead, they answered back with 4 runs of their own and actually stuck for the rest of the game as Michael Busch again leads off with a home run. And then you had Pete Crow Armstrong with a big hit as well. And for the Cubs, they were able to hang in there, even with guys like, Jameson Taillon, who only gave you 4 innings, but that's typical. Craig Counsell's going to pull his guy early. Drew Pomeranz, who got the victory in the game. But the Cubs today, how I look at it is, could they go back to Milwaukee tied at 2? They could. I don't know if they will, though, because you have a situation where the pitching match right now, or the matchup, it's undetermined. So I don't know who's pitching there. Is it going to be both a bullpen game? We don't know. If that's going to be the case, maybe I'll say the Brewers, only because they probably want to just close out the series now, have an extra day or so before they have either Philly or LA, maybe battle it out, and maybe Philly pushes that to a game 5. That we'll have to wait and see, and of course I'll touch on that series in a second. But I would think Milwaukee, they're going to win the series, whether it's in 4 or 5. But knowing that this pitching matchup right now is a big question mark, I'm going to pick them to win tonight and move on to a game 5. And then you have Philly, who, for whatever the reason, they can't win at home. They lost a tough game there on Monday where they had a situation in the 9th inning down 4-1 where Nick Castellanos hit that double to make it 4-3, nobody out. And then they had the wheel play where he got tagged out on 3rd on the bunt. And that was a smart play, but Bryson Stott needed a bunt that toward the first base side. If it was to the third base side, it's easy for Muncy to pick it up and throw it to 3rd. And granted that, Mookie Betts had to make an acrobatic play just to get the tag down and for him to get the ball in motion to tag out Castellanos. But then you had a scenario 1st and 3rd, and you had to have Roki Sasaki come in there. And thankfully that Tommy Edman was looking like Steve Sachs there where he bounced the ball to Freddie Freeman. So he scoops it up, and that is your game number 2. And then last night, Kyle Schwarber with his Schwar bombs, that first home when he hit 2 of them. First one, I think it's still going. Almost went out of Dodger Stadium. And although they had another opportunity there, I think in the 5th inning, they had 1st and 2nd, nobody out, up 3-1. And bases loaded where I believe, was it Alex Vesia? No, I think it was Anthony Benn that came in there and he struck out Brandon Marsh. And I thought to myself, ooh, that could be telling from here on out. But as it was, Clayton Kershaw. Listen, I don't want to pick on this guy, and he's 38 years of age. I get it. He's literally on the 18th hole of his career. But man, you almost can't even pitch him anymore. Here he is. He comes into this game, and I understand the game was still in reach, 3-1, and all that happened in that 8th inning where it just all imploded to where the Phillies got 4 runs, and he gave up 6 hits, walked a few guys, not a good performance. And I get it, it's not in a starting fashion where a lot of the games that Kershaw has blown throughout the course of his career has been as a starter. But for him to go in there last night, and I understand, this is it. This is his swan song. highly respected. We all know the type of career he's going into the Hall of Fame on roller skates. But for him to put up that performance to try to keep his team in the game, and which he absolutely did not, I mean, what more can you say? It goes on his record as another putrid effort in a postseason setting. You got to call it like you see it. And people could say, oh, come on, he's 38, he's this, he's that. Well, if he went in there and pitched 2 innings and it was 6 up, 6 down, people would be cheering Kershaw as a conquering hero. So if it was one way, fine, but it was the other, you got to get called out on it. That's all there is to it. Now, here's the crazy thing about this game tonight, or really later. Oh, it's tonight because it's at 6:08. Oh, wait, let me make sure I get the times right. Yeah, I think it is 6:08. Christopher Sanchez will pitch, and he was the guy, of course, that pitched in Game 1. I would not be surprised if Philly gets out alive. And the crazy thing is that Tyler Glasnow's pitching for the Dodgers, who actually came in relief in Game number 1, so now he's going to start. There is pressure on the Dodgers to win this game because they do not want to get on a flight to go back to Philadelphia. But then the crazy thing is that the Phillies cannot win at home. They lost the 2 games here, as you saw. They lost Game 1 against the Mets last year in the division series and almost lost Game 2, I might add. And then in 2023, up 3-2, going back to Philadelphia, they lose the 2 games to Arizona for the Diamondbacks to get to a World Series. And then the year before that, after winning Game 3 against the Astros, they get no hit in Game 4, and they also lose Game 5 in their building. So to me, if the Phillies win tonight, there is no guarantee that the Phillies are going to win Game 5 in Philadelphia. In fact, I would think all the pressure would be on Philadelphia to win that series, more so than the Dodgers. So in a real twisted turn of events, all the pressure's on the Dodgers to win tonight. Because if they don't, they set themselves up to get swept after winning the first 2 games. But then again, all the pressure's going to shift on Philly because they can't win at home. So think about that when we talk about what's happening here with this postseason. And I do hope we get to see a Game 5 in that series because Milwaukee and Chicago, I hate to say it, nobody really cares because the Brewers, they're expected to win this series. They were the best team in the National League all year with their record and actually had the best record in the sport. So it's kind of like, where Dodgers Phillies, you want to see drama. You want to see that go to a 5th game there on Saturday night before Game 1 there, in all likelihood, Milwaukee on Monday. So what are we going to get here? I think it's going to go to a 5th game. Although I picked the Dodgers in 4, and I guess I have to stick with that because that was my prediction. But I can see this going to a 5th game without question, 100%. But I will say this, if it goes to a 5th game, I like the Dodgers. And they don't even have the pitching matchup as of yet. If I had to guess, well, it's going to be Blake Snell. I would think it's going to be just like you saw there with the Game 2 starters with Blake Snell and Jesus Luzardo. And that was a pitching matchup right there. I mean, those guys were mano a mano until the 7th inning when the Dodgers scored those 4 runs. So that's what you have there with the baseball people. You know I'll be all over it. Looking forward to what's going to happen, what's going to transpire. I will preview the ALCS Sunday. Just look for my YouTube short. I'll give you an idea as to who I think will win. And then Monday when we get back on the podcast, you'll have the NLCS begin there. Because even if it does end today, now I don't know. I'll have to double check. I think the NLCS is set for Monday. So even if both series conclude today, it's not going to pick up on Saturday. At least I don't think. Right now, it'll be scheduled for Monday. But for whatever the reason, if the series concludes and there's going to be a situation where on Saturday that you're going to have the NLCS open in Milwaukee, then I'll have a preview of it on my YouTube channel. Just check it there. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so. So that's the baseball. Now, let me get to the NFL. The rest of this podcast is actually going to be rather quick, people, because there's not really much to unpack. Not a lot of news items, stories, things of that nature have come down the pike here over the last few days, other than what's happening in baseball. But with the NFL, the schedule, you got a few good games in the 4 o'clock window, and the Sunday night is a good one, despite the fact that the Chiefs are 2-3. But because the other Chiefs, and I already have Chief fatigue, I mean, they've been on a million times. They were on, obviously, the opening game there Thursday night the Friday night game where they were in Sao Paulo, because obviously the Eagles had that, but considering that they had their own standalone game in Sao Paulo, you saw them there. You saw them 425 for the whole country to see against the Ravens, against the Eagles, Monday night against Jacksonville. Now we're going to see them again. We saw them Sunday night against the Giants. I mean, I've had enough of the Chiefs, and we're not even at Halloween. I mean, but Detroit, Kansas City is going to be a good game. Tonight, Philadelphia at the Giants. After losing that game on Sunday to the Broncos, you know they're going to be chomping at the bit to just run roughshod over the Giants. And I'm sure Saquon Barkley, who has not had a big start to a season, I understand the offensive line is nicked up, but I would expect for him to get his first 100-yard game tonight. And even though that Giant defense has some pass rushers and some game records, but they certainly have not shown that much, if at all, throughout the early part of the season. But the rest of your schedule, Denver at New York. No, they're not at the Meadowlands or MetLife. This is in Tottenham Hotspur Stadium out in London. So at least you don't have to worry about having to go out to the stadium to watch the Jets, and it looks like they're going to be 0-6, considering the Denver Broncos coming off of that win in Philadelphia. Arizona at Indianapolis. Here are the games, by the way, people. After that atrocious loss there against Tennessee, now Arizona's going to Indy. And return from Marvin Harrison Jr., the town where his father obviously played, Hall of Famer, won a Super Bowl. New England at New Orleans. Cleveland at Pittsburgh. Now that Joe Flacco's in Cincinnati, that's a news item I could get to real quick. To try to save their season, Joe Flacco, who is an upgrade. Dylan Gabriel, I get it. Right now, it's going to be his team in Cleveland. But with Cincinnati and Joe Burrow going to be out till probably mid to late December, the Bengals had to do something to save their season. And that's a guy that as long as they keep him upright, he should be productive and effective. So right now, let's see whether or not the Bengals will get on track, and I'll talk about them in a moment. But now's the Dylan Gabriel show, although people want to talk about Shedeur Sanders. Oh, when is he going to get it? Please stop. Dallas at Carolina. And Rico Dowdle now all of a sudden, after his 206-yard performance there against the Dolphins, now puffing out his chest to be like, yeah, now I want the Cowboys to get back some revenge. Okay. All right. If that's going to tickle your fancy. Seattle at Jacksonville, that's a good game in a 1 o'clock window. Again, not overly sexy. I know Jacksonville's 4-1, and the Seahawks had a tough loss there against Tampa there on Sunday, but that's a good game. LA at Baltimore, only if Lamar was playing, but he's not. You saw what happened there, Cooper Rush the other day, where the Texans just bombarded them. Tennessee at Vegas. Cincinnati at Green Bay. There's Joe Flacco's first appearance. San Francisco at Tampa Bay. To me, that is the game of either the 1 or 4 o'clock window. Let's see. As San Francisco flies east and southeast at that to Tampa, that should be a very good game there. And with all the early talk about MVPs, whether it's Baker Mayfield or Dak Prescott, can I just say this, people? Why are we talking about the MVP race in the early part of October? Why? How about we get at least to the halfway point of the season first? Or maybe, how about we get to December? And is it fodder for sports talk? I get it. But seriously, we're going to talk about the MVP after week 5? Come on. That's like saying, oh, Aaron Judge, he's off to a great start in the month of April. Is he the front runner for the MVP? Can we get to the All-Star break first? How about Memorial Day? I mean, come on. This is why. You want to come for real sports talk right here. I'm not going to go through these, so-and-so, Dak Prescott, he's playing great. 4 touchdowns against the Jets. Their record is 2-1, but is he a front runner for the MVP? If you're watching on Spotify or YouTube, you can see my face. Really, people? So San Francisco, Tampa, and listen, Baker Mayfield deserves all the bouquets that he gets, but MVP right now? And he may be the front runner for the MVP, but can we get to Thanksgiving? Can we get to the halfway point first? And then, of course, you have the dreaded Monday night doubleheader. Buffalo at Atlanta, good luck. Chicago at Washington as they reprise the Hail Mary from last year. And I know Tyreek Stevenson, the cornerback, is still traumatized by that, and I know he's going to want to do anything and everything to combat that, because if you remember that game last year, Jaden Daniels, the Hail Mary in the end zone where the Commanders won. And your buys this week are Minnesota and Houston. So you only have 2 teams this week, where last week you got 4, Atlanta, Green Bay, Pittsburgh, and Green Bay were your bye teams. So that is your schedule for week 6. And as far as keeping the helmet and shoulder pads on for college, a little bit better of a schedule where you have Ohio State, Illinois. Now, I'm not wrapped up in Illinois and I understand the game is in their building. Could they pull off an upset? I guess they could. I'd be shocked if they do so. I know Illinois went to Indiana and they got their doors blown off. And I'm going to get to Indiana in a moment. But for Ohio State, I would think they should be able to handle the Fighting Illini, despite the fact that they are ranked 17th in the country. But we saw what happened there against Indiana, and I understand they're at home. But I would still think Ohio State will do just enough, if not a little bit more, to handle the Fighting Illini. So that's number one. You have Alabama at Missouri, which is interesting because with the 2 games that Alabama just had, beating Georgia at Georgia and then beating Vandy at home, now they're going on the road to play Missouri and they're 14th. So that's a high noon game. I wish that was a 3:30 game. To me, that has more of a 3:30 feel. But okay, fine, because usually the Big Ten plays that 12 o'clock game. So that's a game to certainly watch without question. Your 3:30 window is Indiana at Oregon. And if Indiana wants to show me something, if not anything, is for them to be competitive in this game. And what I mean by competitive, no, not be tied at the half and then get run out of the building. No, not be within 2 scores. Let's say they're down by 10 or 11 and they have the ball and they don't do anything with it at the time, but there's like 6 minutes to go in the third quarter, and then all of a sudden the game unravels from that point on. And I don't even want fourth quarter where you're down, let's say, 28-14, and that was 28-21, and then Ohio State has the ball, and then they go down the field and either kick a field goal or score a touchdown. No. I want them to be competitive in the game where it's within 1 score, but by 3 or 4 points. Give me 28-24 with 9 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, then have Oregon go 3 and out, and then get the ball back. Show me something then. And even if you lose, but let's say if you have the ball down by 4 with about 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, I will take you seriously as a team that could go back to a college football playoff. And let's say you lose the game. Now, if you win the game, that's it. I got to give you that. But competitive in the fourth quarter for everything that I just highlighted, detailed, mapped out, and rolled out for you. Anything less than that, you're frauds. I don't want to hear it. I don't. Case closed. And we'll come back Monday to discuss. Then you have the nightcap, Michigan and USC, which is going to be an interesting game. USC 4-1. I understand that their run game isn't great. And let's see what they're going to do with Bryce Underwood, the Michigan quarterback, as you know. So that could be a low-key, who knows, 17-17, midway through the third. You're kind of like, uh-oh. Can USC pull it off? Florida at A&M. And I just bring up Florida because they beat Texas, but I can see Texas A&M doing a number on them. That's what you have. South Carolina, LSU would have been, but South Carolina is not right now. Nah. And they have to go to Baton Rouge. So that's your college football. But you got some enticing games on the schedule, and ones we'll certainly cover as we get to Monday's podcast. All right, now let me turn my attention. I want to get to the NHL first because the season has begun, and I know I did a different kind of preview. You could say it's half-assed, but if you go to my YouTube channel, on Tuesday, I gave you a few shorts. I gave you my top storylines for the NHL season. I gave you my NHL over-under point totals for the season, 3 overs, 3 unders. And I also gave you my Stanley Cup final prediction. So one that you probably would be surprised. No, I didn't pick the Hurricanes. I know everybody and their mother's picking the Hurricanes or even the Lightning for that matter. Those are the 2 teams that a lot of people have coming out of the East. As I've said before, and I'll say one last time, the West is stacked. It's loaded. The East, not so much. So go back and check those out if you can on the YouTube channel, of course, at JAYREELZ. But the big news, and you had a few signings. You had Kyle Connor of Winnipeg signed an 8-year, $96 million deal on top of Jack Eichel getting 8 for $108 in Vegas. He, by way of the Buffalo Sabres, as you know. And then Jake Waldman, the defenseman, on Edmonton, Waldman, it almost sounded like I said Waldman, signed 7 years, $49 million. But there was another signing on that team which, for whatever the reason, I'm not going to say flew under the radar for those who pay attention and follow, but yeah, because of who he is, the team he plays for, there wasn't a lot of buzz surrounding Connor McDavid getting a 2-year extension. 2 years at $25 million. Here's a guy that this is the final year of his contract, which he signed 8 for 100. And as I just mentioned, Kyle Connor got 8 for 96. Jack Eichel got 8 for 108. Kirill Kaprizov, the Minnesota Wild sniper, got 8 for what? 138, I think it was? Or 8 for 136. And based on his reaction, his press conference after the Stanley Cup final, not in a rush to sign a contract, want to see how the team's going to be built, I want to win a Stanley Cup. All the right things he said, but certainly left some read between the line stuff. And here he is. He signs a 2-year deal, which means he's not going to be a free agent until after the 27-28 years. So that's 3 years from now. So he's given Edmonton his chance to bring in big players. And it's a bit risky because he could have opted out after this year at 28 years of age. I believe he'd be 29 in January. 29. So by the time he gets to 3 years from now, he's going to be 32 years of age. That's not to say he's going to slow down. That's not to say he's going to fall off a cliff. But he's certainly putting all of his eggs in that Edmonton Oilers basket, which I got to admire. And kudos to him. But Edmonton now has to show up and show out. Because this guy, as special as he is, I call him the invisible superstar. Because if I told anybody on the street, and even good sports fans, who Connor McDavid is, they probably couldn't tell you who he is. That's why he's invisible in my eyes. But Edmonton needs to get a goaltender. Edmonton maybe needs to get another defenseman. They have scoring, and I know Zach Hyman was out last year in the playoffs, so that hurt him a lot. But they got to do right by this guy. Because if they don't, and they don't win a cup between now and at the end of that 28 season, he's going to be gone. So I know it's way too premature to even talk about this, but I found it fascinating that he only re-upped for that money, which in essence is telling the Oilers organization that here's my discount to you guys, because I could have asked for the sun, moon, stars, and the entire galaxy, which he absolutely deserves. But he signed in Edmonton. I can't say anymore, so we'll see what happens with that as we move it along this season. And I'm rooting hard for him and their team as well, as long as it's not against the Islanders, which in fact, Edmonton is going to come to town next week in their first road trip of the year, which I'll talk more on Monday's podcast as we get into the hockey. We're only 2 days into the season. I'm not going to unpack anything. I know the Panthers raised their banner to the rafters. They're 1-3-2. We know no Matt Tkachuk, no Alexander Barkov out for the entire year. But the Panthers want to know they get off the schneid. And by the way, if you don't know, now you know, but go back to the JAYREELZ YouTube channel. I picked Florida as an under this year, 103.5. Just saying. Oh, 105.5. I thought it was 103. It was 105. So keep that in mind as we move it along. Now to get to the basketball, 2 things I want to touch on. NBA starts a week from this coming Tuesday. And Giannis Antetokounmpo of the Bucks came out saying that his heart, his thoughts, feelings, etc. is to stay with Milwaukee. But he did say as time moves along that he's only human to think that he wants to be in a better position to win. And although he believes in the organization now and his teammates, that he could get back to and win an NBA final. And this could be the year to do it because the East is weak, as I've said a million times dating back to the summer. But what happens if the Bucks, and remember they got off to a slow start last year. They were 2-8 and they did well. Now they couldn't get out of the first round against Indiana, as you know. But if the Bucks are middling, 500, and you get to January, maybe even February, right before the trade deadline, will he even think to ask out? Or maybe if they have that bad year where they're 45-37 and they get bounced in the first round again, does he not go to the front office and say, hey guys, I think my time is up. Can you trade me somewhere? It's possible. Now people could say, oh, look at that. He's leaving himself open to leave. Or how could he do that to the Buck organization? listen, he's been loyal to this point, and he said it, and he continues to say it. But he did mention that human side. And you got to be open to that and at least be thankful for his honesty. It's not as if he's coming across saying that, I'm staying here. I don't care what you do. If they trade me, that's on them. And then come to know it that he does get traded. He said, yeah, well, I went to the front office and I thought what's going to be best for this organization, blah, blah, blah. And then people are going to literally crucify Giannis from here on out, or from that point on out. So I thought it was interesting for him to say that. He's a very candid guy, very down to earth, a good guy. As long as he's not playing against the Celtics, I root for him. He's a guy that you want to root for. He is that quiet, humble superstar. He's not one that's going to be brash and fraternize with the other guys. He's a guy that is serious about his work, puts in the work. He does it all for his team. I mean, the guy is, they don't call him the Greek freak for nothing. So let's see what happens. Whether or not how the season is going to unfold. Remember, no Damian Lillard. They don't have that guy, that 1A to go along with Giannis. So he's going to even have to carry the load a lot more. But to me, that was a big story here in the last couple of days in the NBA. And yes, I didn't get wrapped up in that LeBron second decision. If you did, shame on you. At first I saw that. I said, nah, he can't go through this again. He's going to put out a TV show and everybody thought, is this going to be his retirement, blah, blah, blah. And I said, no. He learned his lesson. He knows better than to do something like that. And then sure enough, it was an ad for a spirit, for a cognac. So the joke was on you guys who got all wrapped up in that. But of course, everybody's prisoners of the moment. Everybody wants to get the story out. There's stuff on YouTube with me. I saw that. I was like, okay. So, and you had the Aces looking to get a championship. And I understand the Mercury had a great run here. They were down 1-0 to the Liberty in the first round. They blew them out in Brooklyn by 26 or whatever it was. And then I understand no Nafisa Collier in game number 4, but they did play well against the Lynx, who had the best record in the league. And then now Vegas is showing why, especially with Asia Wilson, the 4-time MVP. She made that 3-pointer there with 0.2 seconds left to ice the game. And it is looking as if the Las Vegas Aces are going to sweep the Mercury out. Now, maybe the Mercury will show some pride, win a game 4 in their building before going back to Las Vegas for the coronation, or what will likely be a coronation. That remains to be seen. But to me, it's in the bag. Aces are going to win a championship. And remember, even though the Liberty won last year, but the prior 2, the Aces won those. So they're looking for 3 of the last 4 years for the 4-time MVP and the Las Vegas Aces. And other than that, that is it, people. That is a wrap. Nothing else I can expound on or even touch on. So, as always, thank you so much for stopping by, carving out precious time out of your day to listen to what it is I have to say about what goes on in the wonderful world of sports. And if you haven't done so, people, as I say time after time, please subscribe, like, leave a comment, rate, review, throw me a few stars on any of the platforms that are out there. Apple, Spotify, whatever podcast platform that you desire. The YouTube channel, which I'm continuing to push. And hear me out, people. Not only do you get the podcast on Mondays and Thursdays, but you also get a live stream every Wednesday, high noon on the YouTube channel, as well as podcast pre-games. That's right. A podcast before the podcast, a pre-game of sorts, every Monday and Thursday, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time, just to kind of give you a review of what's going to be talked about on the podcast itself. And you already, if you didn't know, now you know. So depending on how the day goes, or depending on what's happening in the sports universe, you know I'm going to come out fast and furious with whatever's happening. And obviously, as you listen to this podcast, you can only imagine what the podcast pregame was like this morning. So if you haven't watched it, go back and watch it. I implore you to do so. And please, tag your friends, take a screenshot, share it with me on socials, to your family, friends, foes, frenemies. Get the word out. Word of mouth is just as good, people. So please, if you could do that to the diehard, the casual, the good sports fan, the kook like yours truly, please spread the love. Also with some lifestyle content that's also sprinkled in. I would appreciate you doing so. And hit me up on any of my socials with a question, comment, suggestion. Again, tag me on the socials, whether it's the JAYREELZ podcast on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, or just JAYREELZ on Instagram. Twitter, JAYREELZ1, just a number after that. And then the old-fashioned way, the JAYREELZ podcast at gmail.com. I'll be more than happy to follow up with you guys and gals, because whether you do or do not know, this is what I love to do, people. It's in the blood. It's in the DNA since birth. And if you couldn't tell by listening to this podcast, then you guys are lost. You guys got to keep coming back. Because as long as I'm sitting in front of this microphone and camera, I promise I will not take a day off. This is my full-time job, people. 20 months and counting. And I know I got to start making some money, generating some revenue. That's why I need your help, people. So please, if you could do that one more time, I would be sincerely grateful and thankful for your participation, for your contribution, etc. Because, one more time, as long as I'm doing this, alive and breathing on God's green earth, I promise you, I will deliver nothing but passion, fire, energy, fury with my thoughts, opinions, critiques, praise, analysis, feelings on anything and everything that happens on the world of the diamond, ice, gridiron, hardwood, golf course, racetrack, tennis court, boxing ring, octagon, you name it. From my lips to your ears, from my heart to your soul, from where I am to wherever you are, the JAYREELZ podcast always comes correct, direct, and in full effect. From the South Bronx, the South Beach, the South Central, the South Pacific, and all points beyond. Peace, love, and God bless everybody. And until next time on the JAYREELZ podcast, on the flip, baby.